Welcome to this ever-shaping pod work netcasty thing. It started with us doing drunken, exploding cocktails, and it's morphing into guests and network news, community news. So let's get started. First of all, I'd just love to thank you all who made it to the Composer Walk. It was really a beautiful group of people and a lovely time had by all. And what I love seeing is people connecting, networking, but also sharing their war stories. It would be great to find a place that was really central, whether it be Central Europe or maybe a place in Central America, that wouldn't be the obvious choice. I don't know, Bruges or Austin, where we could do a composer walk that people could easily and cheaply come to meet up and have a good time. Suggestions would be much appreciated in the comments down below. We've also got this gentleman called Phil, who's our guest today, who is a Composer Challenge competition winner, and we worked out that he lives in Edinburgh, so we invited him in, and I'm going to do a kind of remix of his track and probably muller it. For those of you watching live on Instagram, do fire me some questions and I'll try and get through them later. But first, this. So excited about what's coming up. It's something that is been 20, 25 years in the making, in the sense of, wouldn't it be good if, etc., etc. Now, before I get on with this agenda, there's a really important message has come in from someone on Instagram, and it goes like this. Hi, Christian. Hope this finds you well. Glasses. I was wondering if you have any advice. I really am not getting younger. I may have missed previous videos, but how to navigate contracts. I haven't really talked about them for film scores. I find myself working on a feature film that needs music urgently, but 3 months in, I'm still waiting for initial payment and the finalised contract. Is this normal or cause for alarm bells in your opinion? Any thoughts greatly appreciated. Okay, this is, I think, a really important thing, because it's kind of like this idea of being a business where you do everything for free and therefore you make no money because everything you're doing for is free, or a business where you make no money because everything you're doing is either too expensive or you're not giving your client the experience they require. It's about finding a middle ground. And so often I see people not aware of the opportunity cost of their behaviour, and it's a really, really difficult one to judge. We shouldn't be exploited. We shouldn't be reminded that if you don't want to put up with it, there are a queue of people outside the back door. This shouldn't be the way it works, but unfortunately, it so often is. And it's about finding that, am I being fucked over? Am I being exploited? Or are the people I'm working with just incredibly busy, and should I have good faith in them? And I would just say that what I would always be mindful of is, one, not being ripped off, two, giving your collaborators the benefit of the doubt, and three, being aware of the opportunity cost of just possibly, I don't know, this is so difficult. I see so many problems created by royalty disputes. These people fighting for points over stuff that is never going to earn anyone any money. And whilst you must never, ever give up your rights, you also have to have a degree of pragmatism about the opportunity cost. Now, if this person or this company that you're working for is a bunch of no-hopers, get your money. If this company, these people that you're working for, if they work frequently within the business, if they are established because they are reliable, they're good at what they do, and they are trustworthy. And therefore, those are the people you need to get into bed with. What you don't want to do is get a reputation for being a bit of a troublemaker. Now, I have had things air on television without a contract being in place. I've had things go out into the cinema without being paid. And I have always been paid eventually for every job. Do I like that being the status quo? Not really, but this is the life of being freelance. You've got to allow for yourself these, what people refer to as standard terms. That's, for some people, that's 30, 60, 90 days on an invoice. And these contracts don't confuse some kind of nefarious intent. It's often just flakiness. They basically are doing a contract with Jude Law and they're doing lots of meetings with their lawyers, this, that, and the other. So I guess it's a question of knowing your place, which sounds terrible and patronising, but I think it's important. We're in a hierarchy. We're always in a hierarchy on these things. But also going, this is a known quantity. This is Ridley Scott. This is that amazing producer, this is an amazing project. I'm not going to get ripped off because I don't think they want their score injuncted because they haven't actually bought the rights to the music, masters or publishing. So I'd just say hold in there, and whenever you really want to approach people about these difficult situations, I would always try and bad cop. My accountant's wondering, we really want to get it into this quarter, stuff like that. So I'm not going to say your name because the project you're on is live, but thanks for the question. And I know that was a very waffly answer, but it's just about weighing up what does your gut tell you. Right. Coming up is a gentleman called Phil, who won one of the composer challenges, and he's kindly provided me with some stems, and I'm going to sit with Phil and probably completely crucify his track in the sense of having a fiddle round with it. So I look forward to that. But there's a few things just to talk about. Today, due to popular demand, we have released Cosmos. For those of you who have been with us since the beginning, that's a plugin that we gave away for free for a very short time only. And because of the videos that are out there and because it just looks really gorgeous, a lot of you have been asking whether we're going to put it on sale or release it again. We have done, and we've done it for a tenner. I really like these 10 quid things that we're doing because it's so easy to buy a whole massive library of analog drums or indeed granular synths that you would find in Cosmos, where really you just want a granular synth for a bit in a queue or something like that, or you want to get one decent sound for a project. So I like the idea of these £10 gems that enable you to get your hands on some really definitive stuff that sounds great, that's great to work with, that's easy to tweak without having to delve into hundreds of pounds worth of stuff that may be not directly connected to the kind of the work, certainly that I do. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Cosmos, it's a tenner, and that is linked in the video description down below. Before we move on to Phil, just a couple more bits. Vaults, it is coming. We've seen the non-beta version, and it's going to have all sorts of aspects that are really exciting. Something technological about it means that there has to be at least one preset that always lives in there. And I've got some plans which are very exciting. The other thing, it's well worth joining the membership at Crow Hill because we're going to start and open up our network community discourse channel. I don't know about you, but I waste a lot of time on social media, and I'm really looking forward to actually having a space where I can hang out with like-minded individuals like yourself. Just so you know, I'm also live on Instagram at the moment. If you've not subscribed to my Instagram account, often I do these filming things whilst being live on Instagram, so they get the scoop. Anyway, next up, Phil. So, Phil, congratulations on this Calton Hill piece that you made, and I think that it raised our attention that Calton Hill is a place in Edinburgh, and you are of course based in Edinburgh.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I thought I'd play on the hill thing.
So, but your accent doesn't suggest that you're north of the border.
No, I'm from Guernsey in the Channel Islands originally. So,
Okay.
and then spent some time in New Zealand. Ended up in Edinburgh and sort of planned to be here for 2 years, and 10 years later, still here.
That's so often the story with Edinburgh. Something happened in New Zealand, didn't it?
Yeah, so there was a massive earthquake, and we stayed for a year, and then the aftershocks were just kind of too much stress, and jobs
Really?
jobs dried up. Yeah.
So what does an aftershock feel like?
So sometimes you hear them coming, you can hear the ground ripping and this kind of thundery thing, and then you get a shake, and there were so many, like 3 or 4 a day you'd feel, that you start to kind of predict what kind of power there was. And there was a website with kind of a graph, and you could go and check and see how accurate. I think it was a 4.5, and it was, got 4.6, I was close, that kind of thing.
Right.
But it's just a bit scary, and you start to kind of adapt your life, like as you're walking around, looking up at buildings, thinking, is that a safe one, or is that something that might collapse?
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So an opportunity came up in Edinburgh. So came over here for a job for 2 years, and then had the kids, the family, and just stayed on.
Now, you grew up in Guernsey, and we've just been to the pub, and so I'm pretending to be ignorant here, but you told me something fascinating. So a lot of people don't realise is that during World War II, Great Britain never was occupied by the German forces except for the Channel Islands.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so it was part of the Atlantic Wall, and there was a lot of bunkers built, and these days,
by the German
forces. Or I think they used slaves. But a lot of those bunkers have become music studios. So sort of started off in bands, practicing in them, and then recording in them, and then decided, why can't I have a go at recording myself? So I kind of developed.
Robbie, I do feel a trip to Guernsey is coming, don't you? To go and see that these bunkers that have been turned into studios. You sent this through, and then you did some stems, and then I asked for some MIDI because the stems came out with effects on and stuff. And I just thought, I love your mix and stuff, but I just thought it'd be fun to show you how I'd kind of muck around with it a bit.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so let's have a look at what you did. So basically, the competition was to create a composition made solely from our vaults stuff.
Yeah.
And did you have a kind of brief in your head of stylistic what you wanted to do with it?
I had an idea, and I canned that pretty quickly because it was rubbish. So I ended up taking 2 ideas I'd been playing around with for a while and putting them together. So you probably can tell the beginning bit and the sort of middle bit are a bit different.
Sure.
So the Celesta tone part was one song idea, and I kind of cut some stuff out of that, and then the piano part was a completely separate thing. And I thought they seemed to kind of work together, so I left it like that.
Brilliant stuff. Let's have a listen. So absolutely fantastic. So you ran me off some stems, but they had effects on. And I've asked you to do the ghastly thing of just giving me the MIDI. We've reloaded the sounds, and it's not going to sound exactly like you left it. And this is quite a common practice when I'm having to track lay for movies and stuff, that you want to give the engineer something to work with, but you don't want it to be too fait accompli. So it's a weird process whereby you kind of break what you've done and go back a few steps before going forward. So I've listened to this, and there was a slightly confusing thing that happened between these two sections. So let's just have a little listen. So if I listen to the original here, let's just check what we've lost in translation. So basically the strings have loads of that shimmery stuff on. So I'm just going to start at the top and have a bit of fun. Hopefully not at your expense. Hopefully we'll
Feel free to do what you want.
we'll enjoy it. So let's start with obviously lots of splosh. I'm going to put in some of this compression. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this out through a bus, and I warned you, Phil, I am pretty much a 3-trick pony. So this is going to be stuff that I've done countless times before. So I'm going to put it through an effects bus. It's working independently of this track, and then I'm going to put it into a digital delay. I'm going to make it really slow. And then I'm going to use good old favourite AU pitch to create a slightly more shimmery effect. That's all right. And then just loads of splosh. Just give a kind of shimmery thing to it. So this is the left hand. What I might do on that is make this slightly more stereophonic by using... I like using plugins that they're not designed for, like wrong. And then I think, again, we'll whack some delay on. Maybe prefer. So, what kind of tech did you when you kind of got into like music tech, what kind of tech were you using? Was it straight to PC or were you pre?
I was pre-PC, yeah. So I was using ADATs, the old Atari STE, which was rock solid, and I was creating a little SMPTE box to connect them up.
Was it a Kenton SMPTE box?
JL Cooper, I think it was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it all worked pretty well back then. It was pretty simple.
Except for the ADATs.
Yeah, but when the tapes went wrong, it was pretty bad. Yeah.
For those of you who don't know that, basically ADATs, they decided to use an inferior video technology because it was Betamax VHS. They decided to use VHS as a means of recording 8 tracks of digital.
Audio,
But the cassettes themselves and the design was fundamentally flawed. So they
ended up kind of wearing out the rollers and then pushing the tape up and crunching them.
You get kind of dropout and stuff like that. So,
but we got the ADAT pipe from it. Just
oh yes, we did. We did get the optical cable from it. Let's see what that sounds like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that dum 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 out of another bus, but I'm not going to actually output it. No output. What I'm going to do is on the that kind of shimmer effect that I've created, I'm going to put it into a compressor, dynamics compressor. And then I'm going to sidechain that to that bus so it pumps with and try and do something that's kind of doing an offbeat kind of pump.
Right.
So let's have a listen to that. So what I've got to do is make this incredibly sensitive. Oh. And then quite quick.
It's kind of like the piano almost string-like, isn't it?
So it's all it's doing is affecting that shimmery thing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, here that's at work. I'm just going to put that in. I'm just going to duplicate that track and put the same stuff in there. Celesta tone. Again, I'm going to do something that it's just not what it's designed for at all. But what I love doing is creating glitch delays, and I'll do that by going and using this pitch utility, which is a vocal transformer, not designed for Celeste at all.
So what is a glitch delay?
It's kind of alters the formant. So let me just, if I take that off and let's just put it on the dry signal, you'll be able to hear what it does. Sorry, let me mute that. Put it on the dry signal, vocal transformer. It's just like one of those things that has been in Logic forever, and it's never been used for whatever it was designed for. For me, when I want analog effects, it's great to use analogy sounding stuff, but I also think making digital go wrong can be fun too. So what I'm going to do is, instead of just putting that on the dry signal, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first put it through vocal transformer, like that, and then delay that, but at 100%, so that your delays will be kind of glitchy delays, I think. But you're now using Cubase, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm going to Cubase 13, so trying to learn it because it's fairly massive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm actually going to do, I don't think the all of that sparkly stuff that we put on the Celeste to tone really works in the delay. So what I'm going to do is just put that directly into this, but without all of that sparkly stuff. So it's into that output there, and then let's take off all of this and all of the splosh and all of that echo there. So it has that kind of interesting high harmonic resonance. I think just take the bottom end off. Maybe not that big. Bit of reverb. Okay, and then I'm going to duplicate that and send that into that as well. It's just a slightly more interesting delay that has just a bit of something to it that is kind of wrong, which, as you know, is what I love.
So how do you select which plugins to use in terms of like getting new stuff in? Do you explore what's available and then try things out, or do you tend to go back to your favourites all the time?
I got called in to the BFI to do a seminar about my favourite plugins, and I did a 3-hour seminar on the Logic distortion and the AU pitch thing. There's some really interesting stuff out there. But I tend to, I think what I do is I sound design. So I make sample libraries. So a lot of the invention goes in before the composition, and the invention is used to aid the composition. When I'm composing, I work really quickly. So what I tend to do is just use these old favorites. I mean, they say that style is defined by limitations. So I limit my options, but also I just think it can. I think that we all have a propensity to procrastinate, and there's nothing more tempting than getting into a rabbit hole with a plugin of sorts. So, yeah, by using these plugins in a way that is unorthodox, and by using plugins that people have forgotten about, I maintain that I'm doing stuff that maybe doesn't sound like what everyone else is up to. But I wish I had a more elegant answer for that. And an example here is I'll just, with strings, something like that, I'd always just want loads more bottom end out of that. So I'll just put specialize sub bass.
And when you're tuning the effects, do you already have like a kind of mastering plugin? Or are you just doing
Not yet, no. I'm very, very careful about mastering. And we will come to that in a sec.
Right.
But there's a reason why I tend not to work with too much of those kind of bus effects. Let's just try and get...
Some nice sub.
Yeah, nice
My
stuff
speakers
going on
as
there.
well helps.
Yeah, these harbors do the trick. So what do we got here? Oh, yes.
I think I created several parts of these. I had slightly tuned the plugin, the volts settings.
Right.
So some of the Celesta tones are slightly different settings. That's why there's 3 parts with it.
I see, I get you. Bit of tremolo on this. I think that's what you had as well, wasn't it?
Oh, I can't remember that.
Let's go 8s. Bit of reverb.
Oh, yeah, and that guitar part, guitar part, I had distortion and tremolo, that's right, yeah. Trying to go for a like, James Bondy sound.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's put a bit of distortion on that. Just bring out a bit of this nice stuff here. Take away a little bit of the muffle. And then let's have a listen to the drums. Now you said you put a bit of bit crusher on.
I did, I crushed it down just trying to make it kind of a bit more hard-edged and gritty. I think I was trying to take away some of the weight of the snare drum.
Yeah.
I thought it was quite a heavy snare drum and onto something a bit lighter.
Let's get a bit crusher in. I've never used bit crusher on drums before. That's really cool. Thanks for that.
I don't know if your Volt does it, but I used to quite like pitch shifting drums up with the pitch bend wheel.
Oh,
just to make like,
yeah.
the snare drums higher tone. I don't know, does your Volt do that? I've not actually tried it.
No, but what we can do is let's so which is the snare. Okay, so we'll do that. Take the snare out. Oh, listen to that bit. So, right. So I'm just going to go to Old Faithful.
So do you add a compressor separately to the snare part now? You made it a separate track? So,
I made it a separate track, tuned it, but then what I will do is I'll whack those into their own bus channel so they're together.
so you would compress them as a group rather
As a
than...
group, yeah, absolutely. And I enjoy compressing muchness out of them. Dynamics, compressor, stereo.
So it's not a multi-band compressor, it's just everything.
I don't know how to use multi-band compressors. So it feels a bit more papery without it. And I like the way the compressor pushes it makes the cymbal go shh, shh, shh. So, and then finally we've got our synth bass. I'm just going to try and pull some of that bottom end out.
Yeah. I think I'd EQ'd out the top as well, actually, just
right,
to try and get rid of the shiny bits. Yeah.
I'm going to make this very stereo by, again, using tremolo.
Would you ever double up the MIDI part with like a sub bass to see how?
Sure, yeah. Let's do that. Good idea. So that was an arpeggiator MIDI effect that you had in Cubase.
So Cubase has got this kind of MIDI plugins. One of them was an arpeggiator. So
but it's amazing how it's outputted that into the MIDI file.
Yeah, I suppose
it's quite cool. Yeah. So let's just get out the key.
It was a bit of laziness on my part. I think I just copied the left-hand candy part down, put it through that, and changed the sound.
Oh, you got to do it.
Yeah.
I get so self-conscious when you've got someone else watching you do your thing. And then I'll whack a bit of distortion on this, just so, again, on different types of speakers, you'll hear it. Just distortion adds a upper harmonic.
So do you normally check your mix on like a MacBook speakers or something like a laptop?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any tips for kind of checking mixes? Do you do that thing of leaving the door slightly open, going into the mix room, sleep? Yeah.
Just, you can never ever judge a mix on the day that you've done it. That would be my biggest one. Yeah. And I think it's forming a long-lasting relationship with your speakers. So I've been married to my BM15As longer than I've been married, and I just know how they behave. And so there's that. I think getting to know alternative speakers. So I'll listen to stuff on these Macs. The speakers in these are fairly good. So I think that's something to do as well.
Do you mix some headphones at all? Or?
Yeah, headphones. I think that they can be good to mix on as well. But yeah, for me, it's speakers, but also different rooms. So for me, it's all about translation. So I've got some big speakers next door in quite a roomy room. And you can go in there and go, okay, well, this hasn't been treated for bass, and the bass sounds really boomy. But it's like, yeah, but some people are in boomy rooms. So you maybe want to temper stuff slightly with the particular sound that you've used. I'm really fortunate that I tend to, when doing professional applications, tend to use professional engineers who really do understand the dark arts and finding the pocket for everything.
Golden ears.
Exactly. But also, I think it's a lot to do with subjectivity as well. They haven't been involved. They're not attached to that. I mean, I don't know about you, but I find it heartbreaking when you've got to like take all the beautiful bottom end out of the piano in order to hear the bass. So I have a kind of an ego attached to the sounds and the performance, whereas the engineers don't really. So let's have a little listen to where we're at, and then I'll talk about the final stage. Okay, drums. Because it's really atmospheric, I think we probably got to do something with the drums that just makes them less dry. So I'm going to try stereo delay, but with like no bottom end on it at all. And then I'm going to put a tiniest bit of reverb just to put it in a place, maybe something like a plate of some sort, just so it's not too like in a vacuum. Perfect. Do you know, it just has a slightly gelling quality to it. It doesn't feel slow, so kind of detached.
Yeah, feels like there's kind of air in the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, mastering at the end. Now, what I would do is probably put a little bit of compression, a little bit of top end, chop the very bottom off so the mix is efficient. However, I don't use bus mastering simply because there's never a stage at which I don't stem out. Yeah. And basically, the problem with mastering compression and EQ and the way that these DAWs sum stuff, basically, what you want is when they bring up like all of your stems, unity. So you've got your what's it called, your reference mix, which is stereo, and then say, well, we've got maybe 4 or 5 stems here. What you want them to do is to be able to mute the reference mix and to have the other faders in unity and for it to sound absolutely identical. Yeah. So as a consequence, if you start putting it into a bus compression, what's going to happen is your full mix is going to sound different from maybe just the drums on their own or the piano on their own, this, that, and the other. So that's why I don't apply anything at that stage. Yeah, and also what I will do is when I prepare stems, so when you, like, for example, prepared these, I imagine that you simply did a bounce out of where you're at.
Yeah, Cubase just had an export and then export all the tracks.
And then you export all the tracks.
Yeah,
now,
I had a dry option as well, which I didn't use. But yeah.
I venture that those in Unity are going to sound slightly different to that, because the way that Cubase sums stuff will not be the same as the way it simply outputs the individual instruments. So as a consequence, what I would do is I would stem this all out, pull the stems in, then sum them within Logic, so that when people bring up the thing in Unity, that sum is the same as the stereo mix, as opposed to bouncing out the stereo mix and then creating some stems that then will inevitably be summed differently. I hope that was explained well.
Then you have to be good at file management to keep a track of everything, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's something I would just come off this job with Apple, and their file management system is insane, like titles this long. And that's when you really want a music editor or supervisor to hold stuff in check. What I would usually do at this point is go away for at least a few hours, if not overnight, as we've said. But listen, I love the original mix that you came up with. It's just it was fun to be able to have a little mess around. Thank you so much, Phil. Let's have a listen to it and let me know what you think. If it's completely rubbish what I've done, destroyed Phil's track. But here we go. So I was quite nervous. This is the first time I've done something like this.
Not an easy one.
No. Just a bit of splash. Love it, Phil. So I'm going to definitely get in touch with you about these bunkers in Guernsey, because that sounds like an adventure that needs to happen. But thanks so much for coming in and letting me crucify your work.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Cheers. Thanks, Christian.
As always, this pod work netcast thing is developing. We may return back to the Exploding Cocktails at some point in the future, but there's been a lot to get through today. So thanks as always for supporting us. The thing that you can do that means the most to us in return for this stuff is to subscribe if you haven't done already. One of those, always much appreciated, and lots of love. See you soon.